Well, the other big story we're following this week, the impact of the state's new abortion law. It was supposed to take effect August 1st, then a few days of legal limbo after another last-minute challenge from the ACLU and Planned Parenthood. State House reporter Hannah Adamson spoke with advocates about the impact here in Indiana as some abortion providers begin to close their doors.
As of today, abortion services have stopped in the state of Indiana.
Planned Parenthood Great Northwest says patient navigator teams will help guide those in need of abortion care to out-of-state services.
There are some hospitals in the state that are trying to rise to that occasion and trying to expand their access, but that is not enough.
Other abortion care providers say they're keeping their doors open for now.
We will continue to provide abortion care as we are legally allowed to everyone that we can.
People's lives are hanging in the balance of this decision.
Beth White with the Indiana Coalition to End Sexual Assault and Human Trafficking says if the court certifies its ruling, there will be no further feasible legal recourse for state pro-choice advocates due to the Supreme Court's landmark decision last year to overturn Roe v. Wade.
They have very explicitly said that these decisions need to be left to the states, and the legislature in the state of Indiana has made their decision.
White says with several abortion clinics already ceasing services, Indiana hospitals that will be allowed to perform abortions moving forward have not been transparent regarding where care will be provided and how much it will cost.
What is the pricing structure? Is insurance going to be a factor? In other words, if you're a rape survivor who is not getting care at the hospital network in your community, what do you do?
Hannah Adamson reporting. Hannah, thanks. This week, Hannah also asked former Governor Pence about the abortion issue during his stop at the Indiana State Fair.
The state's near total abortion ban is still in legal limbo. What are your thoughts regarding this issue?
Well, I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And I couldn't be more grateful to the Republican leadership in the General Assembly. If I have the privilege of being President of the United States, I believe the time has come for a minimum national standard of 15 weeks.
But of course, the big headline from Pence this week on his reaction to the Trump indictment. So there's a lot to talk about here with our panel as we bring in our panelists this week. With us here today, we have former state party chair for the Indiana Democrats, Robin Winston, 2016 vice chair for the Indiana Trump campaign, Tony Samuel, along with two former state lawmakers, former Democratic Representative Terry Austin and former Republican Representative Mike Murphy. So Terry, I'll start with you. You heard Pence's comments there on abortion as Indiana's law is about to take effect. He says he wants to see a nationwide ban put in place. What are your thoughts on the impact these new statewide bans will have practically and politically here in the years to come?
Well, here's what I think. One, it's going to be very confusing because every state's going to set their own standard. Former Governor Pence, Vice President Pence said a national minimum standard of 15 weeks. That's more than the women of Indiana get now. And so I don't know that you could ever pass something like this at the national level. That wasn't the Supreme Court ruling, but women are at a very medically disadvantaged position in the state of Indiana right now as a result of this ruling. I can only hope they delay the certification.
We'll see how that plays out. No doubt abortion will be a big issue in 2024, but we also don't know yet what next year exactly will look like for former President Trump as Mike Pence kind of takes off the gloves a little bit this week when it comes to his former boss, Mike. He's even now selling campaign merchandise with that phrase, "too honest," that Trump apparently used to describe his VP. What do you think of this new approach from Pence when it comes to Trump? Will it work at all with Pence still way behind in the polls?
Well, I don't know if it'll work or not. I will tell you that on Tuesday, after he made that statement, he got 7,000 new unique small contributors.
Getting really close to that 40,000
which gets him very
threshold
close.
now.
He had 30,000 as of Sunday. Now he had 38,000 as of Tuesday. So he'll make it, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it works or not, but he has nothing to lose. If he's at 3% right now, he's got to do something to separate himself from the rest of the field. And the rest of the candidates on the Republican side are too wimpy, or they lack courage, whatever you want to say, to tell the truth about Donald Trump.
Some of them have taken Donald Trump on. Most of them have not. Tony, when it comes to this indictment, are you concerned at all by what we've learned from this latest indictment, this latest court filing in Washington, D.C.?
Well, they're all pretty ridiculous. This one especially so, because what this indictment, the crux of it is that Donald Trump believed that the election, that he had lost the election, but he was trying to fool people into thinking that there was fraud. there was plenty of allegations and examples.
But nothing that was ever upheld in court.
Well, there's still the debate. There's still stuff out there, and I would direct everybody to a documentary by Dinesh D'Souza called 2,000 Mules, which shows folks, shows folks
to some degree discredited.
Well, I don't know about that, but it shows how people were dropping off multiple ballots in the drop boxes, and it shows their activity by satellite, by their cell phone usage.
None of that ever found to be the case.
I think it'll be used in court. But here's the crux of it. There were so many allegations. Donald Trump was not asking Mike Pence to overturn the election. He wanted a pause so that states that wanted to look at the certification could do so again, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, to name a few.
Robin, your response to that and your thoughts on the significance of this latest indictment on the attempts to overturn the election and everything that led to the events of January 6th.
Tony's right. It is ridiculous that the President of the United States would try to overturn the election. It is ridiculous that the President of the United States would take home things to Mar-a-Lago that shouldn't have been taken away. And it is ridiculous that the Vice President of the United States that served underneath him is now saying that he didn't tell the truth. Those are the facts, Dan. The bottom line on this whole thing is that Donald Trump has refused to acknowledge that the American people duly elected Joe Biden president.
Meantime, we're also looking at polling that's out this week before this latest indictment showing President Biden in a dead heat with former President Trump. We have that to show you here. 43-43 in the latest New York Times Siena poll. Trump with a big lead in the GOP primary. Mike, are these head-to-head numbers surprising to you at all, especially given the legal troubles that Trump has faced, or does this show the appetite a lot of people might have for somebody other than Trump or Biden?
Well, they're not surprising, but they really don't matter. What really matters right now are Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and maybe Nevada. And then we'll get to 8 or 10 swing states once we get to the national polls mean they're just something to talk about. But let me clear up one thing. The indictment has absolutely nothing to do with what Trump thought or believed. It has everything to do with what he did. The indictment does not rely one whit on what he believed happened.
We'll see how all of that plays out in court. Today, Terry, we're also looking at some jobs numbers that are out on Friday. U.S. employers adding 187,000 jobs in July, keeping pace with June, but it's still somewhat below expectations as the unemployment rate goes down a notch to 3.5%. At last report, Indiana's was better than that at 3.2, but also some new numbers this week from a report showing that Indiana ranks 47th out of all 50 states for employee pay growth. What do you make of some of those numbers?
Well, they're not surprising. I think that if you're someone who's been tracking how Hoosiers are doing, how their wage growth is doing, this is what you absolutely expected. It's a lesson for the General Assembly and the administration. You can't just focus on a low tax climate. It may be important, but it's not necessarily going to help you attract employers that pay higher wages, need more skilled, more astute workers, and to bring those kind of people to come to the state of Indiana. We're doing everything we can to push people away.
We just have 10 seconds left here. Robin and Tony, just a real quick question to both of you. Is the economy still the #1 issue in the 2024 election? It often is. Is it next year?
I think so, but there's others. There's going to be this corruption that Joe Biden has going from all of the family money taking from China, from Ukraine. It's all coming out in congressional
But the economy
hearings.
is what most people often dwell on.
I have 3 seconds, I guess.
Yeah.
It is going to be the economy. Yeah. Once again, Jim Carville's right. It's the economy, stupid.
All right, we're going to leave it there. We're going to have much more coming up with our panel. And straight ahead, the latest on the race for mayor in Indianapolis. Stick around. We'll be right back after this.